Okay, so I think we're going to start the session. I think we've probably got most people joining us now. So as I said earlier on, my name's Peter Sandman. I work as Head of Visitor Economy here at the Growth Platform. This is our webinar, first webinar in a series of webinars around tech solutions for the visitor economy. The reason we've done this is really because we recognise there's significant challenges for the sector as a result of COVID-19, and clearly the need to adjust to a very, very different trading environment is going to be a high reliance on technology. So what we've done today is spoken to a number of our kind of technology firms who work within the city region. Just thought it would be maybe a good idea just to let you have some idea of what's going on within the tech world, and you can maybe see if those solutions are relevant to your business. Very much to the mind, that's about helping you become more resilient, maybe help you attract different markets, maybe take your product to market in different ways, but maybe also cope with obviously the challenge we've got around physical and social distancing. So just to kind of introduce and go through the order of play for today, we've got we've got 5 speakers in total, plus my colleague Helen Cross, who is our digital and creative champion. So just to run through the order of play, we're going to start off with Kerry Bezic from Avanista, and Kerry's done a lot of work around flexible dining management solutions. Then we'll take up with Paul Wilson, who's the co-founder of QBunk, CEO of QBunk, and that's around remote ordering technology, which is there to really reduce that face-to-face contact as we discussed earlier. And then what we're going to do is just introduce, probably everybody knows Paul Askew, who's chef patron at the Art School. Paul's kind of breaking new ground to a certain extent in terms of some of the work that he's doing in terms of the use of new technology within his business. And Paul's going to give an insight into the work that he's been doing. And then following that, Helen Cross will then just give an insight from the digital and creative sector. And within that, there's a few things that we'd just like to share with you around some funding opportunities, but also some initiatives, one of which is called LCR 4.0, which is very much a diagnostic that helps you to kind of shape and understand the kind of digital technologies that you may need within your organisation. And then we're going to go to Phil Charnock, who's the marketing manager at Draw and Code, and that's really a quick session really around how immersive technologies can support you and the business, particularly in the hospitality sector. What we're then going to do is just follow up with a quick audience poll, just to try and gauge how effective you think this webinar has been, but also how we can possibly shape future webinars over the course of the next kind of couple of weeks or so. And then we're going to have a very quick fire question and answer. I would say if you've got questions and answers, if you just kind of put them through to us on the comments box, as you probably all are very accustomed to doing by now, that'd be really helpful for us. And then we'll try and respond to those either throughout the webinar or at the very end of it. So as I say, just keep them coming through the chat function. That would be great. So that's enough from me. What I'm going to do now is just pass you on to Kerry from Avanista, and Kerry's going to give you around about 10 minutes on the solution around flexible dining management. Kerry, over to you.
That's great. Thanks very much. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. The first webinar I've ever presented, so this is going to be interesting, and I hope I don't bore you all too much. So I'm Kerry. I work for a company called Avanista. In fact, I am the founder and CEO of Avanista. Personally, I've worked in hospitality IT for about 30 years now, so a long time. I get to hear a lot of the problems that hospitality companies have. And I guess we started Avanista. It really came to fruition in about 2009, and really of all the products that we had, Avanista is the one that really stuck for our company. And it's a table reservation solution for restaurants. So we sell that to restaurants on the high street. We sell it to pubs. We sell it to restaurants in hotels, brands of restaurants, brands of hotels, and also in cruise ships. So throughout that sort of broad range of customers, we've been exposed to quite a few different operating environments. Really none like what we currently have. I mean, this is really threw a curveball at everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Avanista, and I'm also going to talk about UQ, which is a solution we came up with. If we go back to, we had this pandemic starting up around about January and February, I happened to be out in the Far East at the time talking to some clients out there. So I'm really hoping I'm not one of these people that brought it back to Europe, but I seem to have got away with it so far. But when it all started, really on day one, our phones literally stopped ringing. So 100% of our business is in hospitality. Phones just completely stopped ringing. Nobody wanting support, obviously. All of our customers phoned down, phones, unanswered. It's like everybody had gone on holiday, and they were thinking exactly the same that we were. Is like, where is the business gone? Literally shut down overnight. And then very slowly, the sort of people start to recover from the shock and having a look at different things that they can do in their business, in the hospitality businesses. And I think the first thing that came to mind was to do ordering. So I think we learned a lot from what's happening in the Far East. And on my recent trip out there, this whole business about online ordering, so basically everybody orders from a phone, from a QR code. That seems to be very much de rigueur, certainly in places like China. You'll even have, pretty much everybody has a smartphone in the city, irrespective of age as well. So you'll see an old couple, 70 years old plus, ordering and paying for their own meal off a smartphone. That's not at all unusual. So the whole ordering thing came to be, and people started addressing that. And I think Paul from QBunk is going to be talking about that as well. Then takeaways came, and then so that's restaurants thinking, right, we have some stock, we've got rents to pay. How are we going to make this thing work? So takeaways was the next thing that came to enable these restaurants to open, and then take away and collect. So that's whereby you'd either come down and collect. So one option with takeaway is that they'll do a delivery. The other option is that the diner will phone through the order or order online, and they'll actually drive down to the restaurant and pick up the food. And this is a great idea, and is something that we're working with restaurants. So if you look at the sort of crossover there between running a takeaway business in a restaurant and running a restaurant, is that you're both going to be restricted by the demand on the kitchen. So your takeaway and your restaurant are both placing demands on the kitchen. And that's where something like Avanista can come in and help, because what Avanista does, it helps to pace the demand placed on the restaurant. It helps to pace the demand placed upon the kitchen. So if you've got demands coming from both areas, some takeaway and from restaurant trade, if you use a product like Avanista, then you'll be able to combine those, and to a point where you don't overstretch the kitchen. And if you don't overstretch the kitchen, then of course the quality of food, the quality of service is going to be maintained. If you think about the simple problem, it's a case of, can somebody place an order for a meal at 6 o'clock on Saturday night? Let's assume it's Thursday right now. Can they place it for 6 o'clock on Saturday night? Have I got the capacity in my kitchen to actually accommodate that order at the same time as knowing that I've got X number of people in the restaurant also placing a demand on the kitchen? So we felt that was important, and that's one of the sort of tactical changes that we're making inside the Avanista system to accommodate that much more fully than we currently can do. And it's quite interesting, then we move from doing takeaways and collect to the government saying, right, you shouldn't be using cash. Really, everybody should be using in-app ordering, so the same as we've got in China. And some people are pre-ordering food, so they're using the app to say, right, I'm going to go to such and such a place, and I want this, that food. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. All of these, interestingly enough, were ideas that we as a company floated 6 or 7 years ago, and we were met with stonewall silence. just couldn't get the message across. So really interesting that now that the screws are being turned on the industry is much more receptive to these different ideas. So moving on then through the pandemic, we've got people scurrying around in hospitality, both in the IT and in the restaurants, trying to find out how they can make things work, how they can run businesses, how they can keep money coming in. The next thing that happened was the government then decided to start easing the lockdown for non-hospitality, and that's where things kind of got a bit more interesting for us. As that concept was mooted and we had customers who were running restaurants at the same time as, say, a garden centre, calling us to say, we're going to open, how can we use Avanista? How can we use our table reservation software to help us run the garden centre? How can we use it to restrict the number of people that we can take at any one time? Because I've got so much square meterage and I know I can't take more than 50, 60 people, and I need to limit that. So we did some modifications in the configuration for this particular customer, and he was quite happy with that. And he opened, and the volume of customers coming in was enormous. And what he was finding was that, you know, he's working in a garden centre. This is up in Lancashire, actually. And of course, I think, you know, everybody would probably say that garden centre clientele, probably a little bit older, probably a lot more safer as far as more careful with regard to the coronavirus. And he was finding that people were going to his website. They were going to check, are you open? They were going to check, do you look safe? You know, is it safe for me to go there? And it's much easier for people to do that on the website. So he just front and central on the website put our booking widget there so people could book a slot to go and visit the garden centre. So the restaurant was closed at this time, but you can book a slot at 2:30 for an hour, whatever it was that you wanted to spend in the garden centre. And then you could also put some notes in to say, you know, if there's anything that you are particularly interested in, let us know in advance and we'll go and get it for you, make sure it's available when you turn up. So this was a chance for us to start looking at a different market sector than just purely hospitality, and very interesting. So what we thought we would do is then generate the or create the UQ app based on this. So it took all of the best bits from the table reservation software and put it into this app that we've called UQ, based upon the idea, well, UQ if you want to, but I'm not going to. Because basically what UQ allows you to do as a venue is to put a booking widget on your website so that you would then encourage your customers and visitors to book a slot with you in advance. You will give it a dwell time, so you expect customers to be there for, say, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever you think the dwell time is. And then the important thing is that that information is then presented to you in smartphones. So you have an app that you can use on your smartphone that shows you who's coming and what time they're coming. But this is the important bit. It shows you if you can take people from your queue right now. So one of the things that everybody's trying to do at the moment is limit the total volume of customers in their venue, because you have to comply to this 1 meter restriction. The problem really doesn't sound that difficult. I mean, how hard can it be? I mean, you could offer like cloakroom tickets and collect those up off people, but if you're on the door, it's quite a difficult challenge. I mean, you imagine now it's 3:10 p.m. If I've got 10 bookings, so advanced bookings for 3:30, I've got 6 people in the door queue, maybe getting rained on, 20 already in the building, and I've got a limit of 32 people maximum inside. How many people can I let in? Because I don't want to keep these people waiting in the queue outside, and I don't want my venue to fill up with people who didn't have a booking when I've got people that already have advanced bookings. So it actually turns out to be quite a complicated problem to solve, and that's where UQ comes in. And I think generally so far, my experience is the response of the industry is too much. Let's just see if we can get away with it. So, for example, Saturday night, I was driving around seeing how people were accommodating this, and basically they were just letting queues build up around their building. So there was one pub that I went past. People were queuing, amazing really, but there must have been 200 people in the queue. I don't know when they thought they were going to get in, but what do I think of that? Well, I think that's not fantastic customer service. If there's a better way of doing this, then I think hospitality businesses really should be looking at that. You know, the customer is king here, and they're going to get away with it for a while. You know, we're in this kind of a honeymoon period where people are so happy to be going out and going to the pubs and the restaurants that they'll put up with anything, but they won't put up with it for very long. And those businesses that recognize this and put these controlling solutions in place that basically respect their customers as people and say, yeah, we'll treat you like a VIP, but with UQ, we'll put you on the fast track queue. So on Saturday night, when you want to come for a pint, you've already got a booking, you're straight in. Everybody else who doesn't have a booking is still obviously waiting in the queue, and UQ is going to manage that for them. So I think it's about, you know, not alienating your customers, it's treating them like VIPs. You know, there is a chance of alienating your best customers if you're forcing them to go into the queue. And the other side to this is that you're also putting a lot of pressure on staff. You know, whoever's managing the door and making decisions about who can come in and who can't come in, that does put a lot of pressure on them when they've got a queue of people standing outside in the rain that they are granting access to or not. And I think one of the things that we're looking at, you know, the way this is going, both for Avanista, so that's managing your table availability, and with UQ managing your, you know, very fast-paced, high-volume demand, such as you'd get with a pub or a bar, is the fact that this landscape is likely to change. So right now, we're basically trialing 1 meter distancing, and we are seeing how that translates into the so-called R rate. If the R rate goes up, depending upon the pace of that increase, then you know, we may be looking at back at 2 meter distancing, trying to keep pubs open, trying to keep restaurants open, but changing the distancing, or maybe changing it so that you have other changes in the way that you are to operate. You know, maybe you can only open a Saturday or Sunday or something like that to prevent, you know, multiple spreads. And UQ and Avanista are both really well placed for this. Something to watch out for, because they allow this great flexibility. I mean, you can change your floor plans on a per session basis with Avanista, so you can operate a completely different floor plan from lunchtime to dinner to the next day to Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and exactly the same with UQ as well. I think the other thing that is possibly likely to happen, just my reading of it, is, again, if the R rate goes up, I think the track and trace is going to become much more important. So at the moment, while hospitality companies are being asked to record just the details of one member in the group, I think it's likely, if it doesn't go well, that one of the first sort of breaks they'll put on it is to track everybody, so at least they can implement their tracking and tracing and see whether they can get that whole infrastructure to start working. I think what I'm saying here is that it's a changing landscape, and we should expect it to change, and you as hospitality businesses should be prepared to change. So where we're going in the future with this is obviously trying to accommodate these, trying to record more information about customers, for that enhanced track and trace feature. And also we're getting a lot of interest from cruise ships. Now, cruise ships are great incubators of ideas because they're pressurized environments, great incubators of viruses, of course. So they have to be super careful. So we're expecting that we're going to learn an awful lot from that environment in the next, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks as we start delivering solutions to them for them to work through on board. Okay, so I think probably I'm conscious of I go on and on for hours and hours, but I think probably my 10 minutes are up. So thank you very much for listening.
Sorry, we don't seem to be able to hear Pete at the moment. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's all right, Helen. If you just can't get the video back on, unfortunately, I think it's Karen needs to put us back on. But thanks for that, Kerry. Really appreciate it. So what we're going to do now is just move very quickly on to Paul Wilson, the co-founder and CEO of QBunk. Paul, are you okay to take the screen?
I think Paul's just connecting back in. It looked like he dropped off before. So, Paul, are you with us?
Hear me?
Paul Wilson, are you with us? Are you able to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just see you there, Paul. You okay to go?
Okay, so that's cool. The internet literally just went down then, so sorry about that.
The problem's new technology. Thanks, Paul.
The pivotal moment. Okay, so yeah, thanks for having me on the webinar, guys. I'll just tell you a little bit about my background and some information on QBunk as well. So yes, my name is Paul Wilson. I am the founder of QBunk, and a little bit about me is I've been an experienced working in the automotive industry for the past 14 years. And my roles really have differed from working as a team leader to a production lead, launch team leader, and also a process engineer. And really everything that I was geared towards doing in the automotive industry was delivering operational excellence that improve quality, increase productivity, but also impact the company's line, which is really important. And if you think about these KPIs, no matter what size your business is, these are really important measures for everyone to have. And so what I wanted to do was take all of my experience and knowledge within the automotive industry and bring it to the hospitality industry, where I saw a lot of problems within the service process itself. And so QBunk really started off with just an idea of how we could bunk the queues, because as a customer, one of the most frustrating things that I ever found was just how much time I wasted on an evening out with friends when I was having to queue for service. And of course, there's a lot of other problems that come with that too. Some people just aren't as assertive as others when it comes to waiting in the queue at a bar. Also trying to grab the attention of a waiter or a waitress sometimes when you want to pay a bill or order drinks. And so QBunk was all about giving the customer the power of how they chose service. The option of going to the bar, the option of taking table service, or just simply sitting down and placing an order directly from mobile phones, because we live in a world now where technology does help us and it makes our life a lot easier, whether we're ordering a taxi through Uber, getting a takeaway through Just Eat, or just simply shopping online too. So the question I always asked was, why don't we have this technology in bars, in food halls and places where, they would really benefit from? Obviously the big change started to develop this type of technology, like Wetherspoons was the real groundbreaker in this. But for the SMEs out there, I think everyone could recognize that technology is a really important part of the future, but having the means to be able to have an app just for their own venue was really costly. But then what I started to do was ask the questions to the customers, because what I needed to understand was this a problem that was shared with everyone, or was this just something that was just down to me and my background, because I came from the automotive industry, because I was always looking at ways of making the production line more efficient? Did I always just have my work head on? And so I started to go out and ask people the same question. So I go to different bars and restaurants across Liverpool, Manchester and Chester, and I think I interviewed over 200 people in total, and just said, if you could have the option to place an order from your mobile phone, have your drinks delivered to your table, or go and collect it, is that something that you would use, or do you just think it's not necessary in this type of industry? And overwhelmingly, people were telling me, like, yes, if we had this solution, we would use it. So, you know, that kind of, for me, was like my eureka moment. It was like, okay, so what can I do next? And so I took all of this information. I asked customers where they'd like to see this type of product, the favorite bars and the favorite type of restaurants. And then I approached those venues. And, you know, I thought that it was great. I was like, okay, I'm going to go in there with this wealth of information and just present to the managers and say, your customers want a mobile ordering solution and I'm going to make it for you. But of course I hit a wall, because in the hospitality industry, you know, all of this great customer service has been built on face-to-face service. And so when you then suddenly go in there coming from a totally different industry and saying, we want to bring technology to you and help you serve more customers and be more efficient and impact your bottom line, you know, I face this kind of, you know, a lot of restriction. And so it was difficult to begin with to try to find some early adopters who agreed, who could share the vision with me and enable me to be able to test the product. But luckily I was able to. And so Cubunk started. We began by, first of all, we were in Dockside Dining Club in Liverpool, and we just ran a very, you know, series of basic tests, and where we put menus on the table. We put a phone number for a WhatsApp for the customer to order their food and drinks just by a text message. And then I literally sat in the middle of Dockside Dining Club with 5 mobile phones around me, all pinging in with orders coming in from customers. And then I was handing out handwritten receipts to different people who were helping me out, and they were running to the vendors and handing them over, and we were delivering food to the customers. So what we were able to do by just a small experiment like that was validate that people would be willing to use mobile ordering technology, even in the most basic way. So, you know, texting a random number to someone who you don't even know, just to make sure that they could get their food and drinks without having to queue. So, you know, that for me was like a really, really positive test. And then I was able then to take that information and go to a set of investors and say, look, I've validated this now. What I need you to do is give me some money, and then I'll build this app and we'll make a prototype and begin to test it. So that was 18 months ago when I first done that. And then we continued then from that vein. We were lucky enough to receive investments, and we were able to build our very first prototype for the product, which was fantastic. And then we were able to test it and iterate it and really refine it, because the most important thing for me, from my processing background, was ensuring that we had the right product market fit. You know, it's one thing just assuming or sitting in an office and making a nice, you know, flow process map and then design something just from scratch. But the most important thing for me was speaking to bartenders, speaking to the customers, you know, the people that really mattered, to make sure that we could develop this platform and make sure that we were able to deliver what we wanted to do, which was, from the customer side of things, you know, help to make sure that they were not waiting in queues and they could receive service whenever they required it. But also from a service point of view, to make sure that we developed a platform that didn't disrupt the level of service that they currently have too much and deviate away into something that would cause them a problem. And so it's been 18 months in the making, Cubunk, and now we're at a point where we've been testing it, you know, week in, week out at different venues, consistently iterating, and we're in a really good position now with our platform and how it operates, and we're confident that, you know, our customers love it in terms of our end customers, the ones who will be placing the orders for food and drinks, but also the likes of the bar staff and the kitchen staff too. So we're in a really good place with that at the moment. And as I said, you know, what I wanted then to do was bring all of my experience to the hospitality industry, and then be able to help out in whatever way I could. But one of the things that I noticed just during the times of my audits and the testing was that the hospitality industry, it didn't have the same, I'd say, pragmatic approach when it came to understanding how time savings, even just in small minutes and seconds, can really help to, you know, reduce the waste that's in the service process that currently exists with waitresses and waiters making unnecessary journeys, or actually waiting at the dispense area for orders to be made. And so by using technology, you're able then to automate many of the steps of the table waiting process, so that venues can become more efficient. And by becoming more efficient, we've been able to now prove that tables can be turned over quicker. We're providing customers that convenience and to encourage dwell time as well, and place orders on their own terms, which also, as we've been seeing from our trials, there's a natural increase in the average customer spends, just because the customer is not in that pressured environment now, standing face to face with somebody at a bar, or with a waiter or waitress, and because they're able to take the time and look through the menu, they'll add extra orders onto the extra items onto their order. Because of the way we've now become more efficient. I mean, of our trials last weekend, it was fantastic in terms of we were able to help the venues and reduce the staffing costs as well, which has been really important, particularly now in this COVID-19 period, because what we're seeing is a lot of venues are under pressure. They're not being able to operate at full capacity, so they can't obviously bring all of their employees back too. And because we've been able to now take away the waste from the process, particularly in that service part of things, and automate everything, we're now seeing that we're delivering the efficiency that allows them to take the headcount out of their operational side of things too, which has been really positive. So in terms of like COVID-19, we all know the obvious benefits that mobile ordering is bringing in this current climate. So we are able to promote the non-essential contact between people, social distancing measures, we are able to take cashless payments, but it also reduces the amount of handling of goods and consumables such as pens and papers, because with Qbunk, everything that we do is sent through push notifications, so we try to reduce the need for paper too. So this helps them venues to be able to, guarantee that they're doing all the things that they can to promote the health and the well-being and the safety of their staff and customers alike. Now, some of the questions that I often get asked just about the platform is, how quickly can I get Qbunk set up at a venue, and what are the installation fees? Now with Qbunk, what we've tried to do is really ensure that everything is driven around a low setup cost. So what we try to do is interact with venues' current hardware systems too. So literally, as long as you've got an iPad, and if you're a food venue that insists on using a kitchen printer, if it has an Ethernet cable, then we're able to just connect it to the Qbunk system and use that too. So we're not turning around and saying, if you bring Qbunk on board, you've got to pay, say, £500 for this new EPOS system and everything like that. We just try to integrate it as best as we can. And because we are a startup, we're able to learn off our venues, understand what technology they're using, what systems that they currently have, and integrate it as well. So the further down the line we get, the more venues that we get on board, we're going to be able to have this really seamless platform that's going to be a really positive and fantastic business tool, and to help our venues just to drive efficiency, but also to increase revenue too. So when it comes down to Qbunk itself, it's just a really simple plug-in system. It's a native app, so all you have to do is literally download it and you're good to go. Our team will connect you by taking care of all of the admin side of things. So what we'll do is we ask our venues to be able to send us the menus, and then we'll upload it to the platform. We'll also be able to provide training and give a step-by-step guide of how the venue then connects with our payment gateway, which is Stripe Connect. So we can literally get everything done in a day, which is absolutely fantastic. And when it comes then as well to how much Qbunk costs, I think we're really competitive with that too. As I said, we use Stripe platform, which takes all of the payments through Google Pay, Apple Pay, credit card payments too, and the transaction fees that we've been able to bake into our revenue model is really, really competitive. So it literally costs 4p per transaction and a 0.85% processing fee. When you compare that to some of the other payment merchants out there, like I said, it's really, really competitive. So we're just doing everything that we can really to lower the costs and give venues a solution to this period now, because none of us have ever led through anything like this before. And we need all the help that we can and all the experience that we can, not just from people within the industry, but somebody who's come from a different sector like myself, and put some fresh eyes on things too. So, in terms then of how it's all set up, it's really easy. And the great thing with Qbunk is that, we're a proven startup, and we've been there. we've done it, we've done all the testing, and now we've got this right product market fit that we think is not just suitable for bars. We can do it for restaurants, coffee shops, anyone within the hospitality industry that serves food and drinks. And so far we've had some fantastic feedback. This weekend we're going to go live at Chester Base Course, which is it's a huge climb for us, and it's really going to test us as well, because they've got a couple of pop-up bars on the venue at the moment. Obviously there's no racing available at the moment, but they've got 3 different pop-up bars, and those pop-up bars will have a capacity of 200 people in each of the venues, and we're going to really be able to test the system there. But we've been doing trials with them, working closely with them, and we're confident that everything is good to go. So that even when it comes down to the likes of the some of the table collateral that you'll need so people can understand how to download the app, we can provide all of that too, and we brand it to your particular venue. So literally, like I said, Cubunk is a great solution for you if you're thinking about mobile ordering, and you're looking at working with somebody closely who will listen to what your values, what's important for your business too, and how we can then collaborate together to not only improve your business but also help Cubunk become, I'd say, like the market leader in this type of industry for this type of product, and be able to develop a platform then that is, it's universal for everyone. And so that's where we're at the minute. So we've got some great venues signed up for Saturday. Really looking forward to those trials. And of course, if anybody needs to speak to me or would like to get a bit more information on the company, then just please, get in touch through the link on this platform, or drop me an email and give me a call.
Thanks very much indeed, Paul. That's really good information. It's obviously really good to see how you're using new technology to obviously help people keep people safe, but also utilise that new technology to really improve the customer experience and drive efficiency, which I think is obviously really important as we all try and make our way through the challenging months to come. Obviously, we appreciate we're running quite short on time at the moment, so I'm going to move quickly on just to introduce Paul Askew, who's chef patron at the Art School. Paul's looking at it from the other side of the lens, really, as a visitor economy business who is looking to adopt new technologies. So if I can just introduce Paul onto the screen, and Paul will just give you some insights in terms of how the Art School are embracing new technology. Paul. I think we might have some minor problems accessing Paul. Are you there, Paul?
Yes, hello.
No, there you go. You're on, Paul, if you're okay to give us the insights from the Art School perspective.
That's fine. Yeah, well, good afternoon, everybody, and hope you're surviving the madness, as I always say to people. I think for us, it's been an incredibly tricky time, and it's fascinating for me to sit and hear the technical industry side of things. I didn't think I'd ever be on a webinar talking about tech, because I'm more of a culinary artist rather than a technical man, or a sort of a digital man, shall we say. But what's happened, I think, the whole COVID crisis has forced us to look at everything. We've had 14 weeks of closure since March the 20th, and we have had to examine every possible aspect that we have in terms of how we can, get through this, how we diversify, how we use every possible tool in our kit to be able to come out of this stronger. I mean, we're a fine dining restaurant. We pride ourselves on doing tasting menu excellence, prefix, and it's all about customer interaction. It was very interesting to hear the previous two speakers talk about, how those things now need to be stripped away and replaced by technology and apps and how to order without humans at the table and all these things. And for me, that is a massive conflict, because I'm a chef and a restaurateur over the last 39 years who's prided themselves on putting those layers of service and putting those layers of interaction in place. So of course, before I even start thinking about the new norm, I'm massively conflicted every time I take one of those interactions away. So we started to look at how to approach the 1 meter rule. At 2 meters, if I'm honest, it was hardly worth us opening. You can see the red seats behind me. They would have been down to 24 from 48. We're now at about 36 with a 1 meter in. So it gives us a fighting chance, as I say. But the other aspects of our business were the art school cellars downstairs at the champagne bar and cocktail lounge, and also private dining. So we have three areas in total. And what we were thinking was, because clearly when somebody switches your revenue off and turns it to zero after you've been used to being very, very busy doing, maybe 800, 900,000 covers a week, it's a massive shock. And I've got 35 people who I want to keep employed. I've spent 6 years building up a team that I'm delighted with. And the last thing I want to do is see that team broken up. So it was very interesting to hear the announcements yesterday from the Chancellor. Very welcome, I might say. But this is where we start to think about the diversification. So for us, we've been lucky in that we've built up a good reputation, a good name, a good brand, if you like. And it became apparent that lots of people wanted to stay in touch with us through the lockdown. They were looking for wines to be delivered home. They were looking for some sort of dinner parties to be delivered home. Obviously, we weren't able to go and cook in their houses like we normally would, but they were looking for the art school experience, but in a very different way. Now, we didn't want to do takeaways because we don't like the thought of art school food in a brown bag in a box being delivered, and I'm not in control of how it looks when that box is open. So we haven't gone so much the fully prepared meal route. We've gone more into the sort of gourmet ingredients, fine wines, champagnes, cheeses, charcuterie, our own branded preserves, chutneys, all sorts of things that you like. And then we're going to promote a box scheme, which sometimes might be a gourmet barbecue box one weekend, or a gourmet fine dining cook along with Porky Askew type affair. We might do an afternoon tea. There's all sorts of things that we're looking to do. So we didn't really have an online presence in terms of tech. How do we get into the the sort of, how do I become the Fortnum and Mason of Merseyside or the Northwest, which is where we want to position ourselves. So we've been working very hard with a number of companies, looking at our online presence, looking at the online purchasing, how to streamline the fulfillment. We've actually set up a physical shop in our own art school cellars. And that's also going to give us the chance to future-proof the business. If we do get a localized lockdown, or we do get a second spike, God forbid, the thought of me having to shut the doors of the art school again completely with zero revenue and probably no chance of opening the second time without massive subsidy, because we all realize this isn't going to last forever. The government measures will finish in October. I think the VAT thing, etc., is amazing, but it's not going to go on forever. And I want to future-proof this business. I had dreams when I opened the art school 6 years ago. It's my lifetime's work, my lifetime's dream. I wanted to make this the Gavroche of the North, and I have no intention of seeing it disappear. So all of the things that I'm looking to do are probably there, probably available. The tech guys have probably listened to me talking, thinking of solutions straight away. But I want to be able to get my products maximized out on in the internet. I want people, when they search, that the art school pops up and shows that we're doing those gourmet deliveries, we're doing those fine wines. We do import wines direct from Italy and champagnes from France that we're the sole importers for, etc. And it's how we get to that point and how we maximize those opportunities. I mean, we have a system now which is probably very traditional and very straightforward. But I think the reason I was attracted to what the growth platform have been doing is that historically, visitor economy businesses and his hospitality businesses like myself don't normally apply for funding for something like innovation or digital or tech development. And when I saw this pop up, obviously, my focus at the moment has been reopening the restaurant. I'm sat here in my chef's whites, just having finished lunch service, I'm delighted to say. But I'm a chef and a restaurateur. I'm not a tech. I'm not a digital man. I don't know how to write a program, and we need expertise and we need collaboration. And I think what this Innovation Fund could do for us because of the financial constraints that we're all under in the visitor economy and beyond. You know, just listening to the two previous presenters, I can think of all sorts of colleagues in my sector in the Liverpool Hospitality Association who'd be delighted to talk to you, I'm sure. But for mine, it's a very bespoke product. It could be something that has to be written specific to our needs. As I say, it takes in deliveries, it takes in click and collect, it takes in box schemes, it takes in, well, reservations is actually quite well serviced in that we were with Book a Table before, which is part of Michelin, and their system is actually very versatile, and we've just changed the table plan, and again we get prompts and we set dwell times, and you know, all those things are in hand really, and actually payment and deposits and things like that, because no shows is a big problem in the industry at the moment. That might be something to look at for the guys, but really it's just to show, you know, we're all very diverse in our sector. You know, the art school is probably quite unique in this city, just as Murray might be, or Salthouse Tapas, or Bacaro, or Mowgli, and you know, we've all got very different needs. And I think what this shows today is that, you know, there are tech solutions out there. There are clever people who can sit and do something bespoke. And I'm hoping that between the growth platform and the guys who, you know, have given you examples today, that hospitality businesses will look to apply for these grants, and let's connect the three together and make it happen, because this could be absolutely a lifeline moving forward, because this is the new norm. You know, the box schemes, the retail, the diversification of all the businesses that are out there fighting for their lives is absolutely paramount to me. So I welcome all the presenters, and I welcome the Innovation Fund, and it looks like we're about to hear from Helen. So I'll stop prattling on, but I hope it gives you a feel for where I'm at. I'm just one example of many in the sector. So hopefully there'll be a few questions at the end, and we can have a little chat. Thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Paul. That's great. I think I had a bit of a kind of speech about all the different funding that people can apply to, but actually what Paul's just been saying there, I think this having this conversation between hospitality and tech is really important to see sort of, you know, what's needed and how we can actually help the sector through the tech companies that we've got. We've got a huge number in the city region, and it's great to hear from a couple this morning who've really had to pivot their businesses recently so that they can actually offer what's needed by the industry rather than what they were doing before. So UQ didn't exist before the pandemic, and QBunk has actually changed quite dramatically since the pandemic as well. And we've got tech companies who are there to kind of count people into venues, who are there to check for the health of visitors as they enter, who can sort of monitor people's movements and behaviour to enable better decision making by venues. As Kerry mentioned before, the QR codes in China can be used for all sorts of different ways of communicating with your customers. So that's something else that we can look at. There's businesses in the city region who, you know, that tech is quite simple for them to adapt for venues. So there's loads of potential there. And I think we're going to be hearing from some of these other companies in future webinars if that's what people are looking for. And we're going to be hearing from Phil Charnock at Draw and Code in just a moment. So Draw and Code create immersive experiences with augmented and virtual reality. Phil's also on the digital and creative board and is very excited generally about the reality and the potential of immersive tech. And he can talk a bit about some of the trends he's seeing. And I think what I'll do, instead of taking up any more of your time at the moment, we'll send out in the follow-up email how you can actually sort of access some funding and support to adopt some of these digital technologies. Because I think some of these things like, you know, virtual reality may previously been out of reach, but through programs such as our LCR4 START program, we can actually help you adopt these things. And there's some money through other programs as well to actually help your investments go further. So I'll pass over to Phil for now, and we'll follow up with some information about those funding and such stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Yeah, so hello, I'm Phil Charnock from Draw and Code, as I've just had a wonderful intro from Helen there. It's quite interesting what Paul was just saying there as well, that he feels he needs a really bespoke solution, and that's kind of what we do at Draw and Code. We do what we say in the tin. We draw and we code. I don't do either. I do and. I'm very much kind of working on business development and marketing. But I'm just going to give you just a quick run through of what we do, show you a few slides. And basically, we work around immersive technology. So I'm going to give you a little 101 of what that is. So I'm just going to share my screen. I hope everybody can see this. And I'm going to hit the present button once I find it. My own face is in the way of it. That's a peril of Zoom. I hope you can all see that there. So yeah, we're Draw and Code. We are based just off Hardman Street in lovely Liverpool. There are 20 of us, and we've been doing what we do for about the last 10 years or so. So we are an immersive technology studio, and we work with all sorts of weird and wonderful clients, some very big names, some a lot smaller. But the one thing that they all have in common is that they are ambitious and they are interesting, and they want to try immersive technology and see what it can do for them. But of course, the big question is, what is immersive technology? Now, excuse me if you already know, but I'll give you a little 101 in what some of this terminology may mean. The real shorthand is that immersive technology is technology that puts you and your environment in the center of it. It's not a screen off in a corner that's flat and can easily be ignored. This is something where it's really part of your world. So I've just got 3 examples here. We've got projection mapping, which typically uses, quite often it's a building, but it can be any object, to have projection onto it. But the projection is tailored precisely to that object or building to create some weird and wonderful effects. It's actually, in a way, it's very similar to augmented reality, but we'll get to that in a minute. Then we have VR. You're probably more familiar with virtual reality than most. Certainly, even if you haven't tried it, you'll probably have an inkling of what it is. But it's a lot more than just putting the screen on your face. Once upon a time, my parents had told me off for sitting too close to the screen. Now it seems a fine thing to do. But it's a lot more than that. If you think about what the inputs are in a video game, that if you're all fingers and thumbs, when your fingers and thumbs are on the controller, instead this is completely natural movement. When you move your head left and right, the view of the scene will move with you. When you move your arms around in the game, assuming you have arms in the game or the experience, your arms will move around too. And of course, VR is being used for all sorts of different things, being used in education, training, all sorts at the moment. And then we have augmented reality, which typically uses a mobile phone, and it overlays annotations, it overlays animations, either onto you or your environment. And I've got a picture of some kind of silly Snapchat filters here. People often don't think about when they are using augmented reality and when they're not. It's actually a huge technology. It's hugely popular. People often ask me, when will augmented reality become big? It's absolutely gigantic. Already, more people use augmented reality on Snapchat alone than use Twitter, full stop. And there's about 40 million more people use augmented reality on Snapchat every day than use Twitter. So that's quite astonishing. And many of you will work for organizations where you will have a Twitter strategy, a Twitter team, a Twitter budget. But does your organization necessarily invest in something like Snapchat or augmented reality as a whole? Probably doesn't. These are just a few examples just to inspire you a little. So what we typically do at Draw and Code, we will make things typically that are bespoke. We do have a couple of products, but we typically make bespoke solutions for people with very specific needs. But here are kind of 3 projects that are not ours, but I will kind of use them as examples. We have the world's top 2 art shows in 2019 were both immersive art shows. And that's quite something, really. We're not talking about just looking at a picture on a wall in a gallery. We're not talking about walking around static museum piece. We're talking about environments that people could step in and they were completely surrounded by moving, living and interactive exhibits. I've got somebody at the door. That's typical, isn't it? But we'll leave it. It's fine. That's what neighbours are for, isn't it? And that's something that's becoming bigger and bigger. And in Liverpool in 2018, we, of course, had the Terracotta Warriors exhibition. And that was something that Draw and Code are very proud to play a part in. But it was also the UK's most successful ticketed show of any kind in 2018. And that had immersive elements in there, very subtle ones. We then have this virtual event you can see in the centre here in Helsinki. Now, this was already online before the COVID crisis, but it's really come into its own during this time. They basically created a virtual venue that recreated, could hold kind of online events as a partnership kind of with real events. So there would be kind of a digital program running alongside the real events that people internationally could experience. And all of a sudden that has become a very sound idea that I expect a lot of cities will want to adopt. And then the third example is something from Google that is a really simple thing, really, but it's using augmented reality to determine just how far away is 2 meters. I've certainly found my children don't really understand how far away 2 meters is. And sometimes I don't. So I think it's a really, really handy, really simple tool to make sure everybody's kind of keeping their distance. It's a really simple thing. And I kind of wrote here, why not gamify it for kids? I think that'd be a great idea. But anyway, that's just a few different points. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. But all I wanted to do is just share those with you, just to inspire you a little, so you can think about how really new and innovative technology, if you have a crazy idea, it may not be so crazy and it might be possible to make it. So yeah, as Helen was saying, just to emphasize that there are funds available, and speak to people like the Growth Platform about what is out there. Even if it's not their own funds, even if it's not their own support, there might be something for you out there, and you can work with one of the really talented digital agencies in and around the region to make it happen. Right, thank you everybody.
Thanks, Phil. That's absolutely great. Spot on. And thanks for keeping it so brief, but really, really informative as well. We're very closely, we're getting very, very close to 4 o'clock, which is obviously when the webinar ends, but we're going to skip the Q&A session. We've done most of that via the online chat, and anything we do leave out, we'll get back to you on. And obviously we'll provide all of the contacts, our contacts, and the contacts of the guys that have done the presentations today with you. I think we're just going to skip very quickly now to do the audience poll, which is going to be picked up by my colleagues Carolyn or Susie. So if you can just make that happen, Carolyn or Susie, that would be great. Okay, so what we want you to do is just to go through and just answer those questions for us. So question 1, are you looking to invest in new technology to enhance your business? And yes, 80% of you, which is going down, going up, going down.
We've still got a few more to vote.
Yeah.
About half have voted so far.
Come on, if you're out there, let's see. We've got 14, 15. That's 60% so far. 65% of you looking to invest in new technology within the next 6 months, and closely followed by 12%, 18% who aren't looking to invest in the present time. But that's certainly over 3/4 of those in today's webinars that are looking to invest in new technology, which is really important for us. Okay, I think that's it. Can we skip to the next question?
Yeah.
Okay, are you looking to invest in new technology to enhance your business?
We've not had another question come up. That's the first question again. Carolyn, is there another question?
Yes, sorry.
There we go.
That's question 2.
Okay, do you currently know what new technology you might like to invest in? And hopefully today's webinar has given you something of a steer on that. Okay, so we've got just over half of you responded to that one with, there we go, there's a few more coming in now, which is good. So that's 65% looking for clear guidance out of those that responded, and 35% have got a clear plan. So that's really helpful, I think, just in terms of the way that we are looking to shape and develop these products and support you in that journey. Maybe if we can move to question 3, Karen.
Yeah.
Question 3, slightly more options for the answer here, but would you like further information following this session? And that really just picks up some of the interventions that we touched very briefly on before. The Future Innovation Fund, which is around a piece of funding which has been piloted over the last couple of months from the Combined Authority, which is just around helping you access innovations to improve your business. LCR 4.0, which is there to support and provide that diagnostic in terms of what your business needs. Great that you'd like to see more sessions. And certainly in terms of tech providers, we can certainly provide more of the information about the tech providers as we develop this relationship with them within the growth platform, and we'll let you know that across the Visit Liverpool.biz website, which is our Vistry Economy website. So again, 16 of you 27 have voted. Okay, that's really helpful. And if we can move on to the next question.
That was it. There's only 3 questions.
Only 3 questions. Sorry, I thought there was 4. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for participating. We just about made it to maybe just 4 minutes over the hour, but we'll certainly be in touch with you around the contents of the next webinar. And if you've got any further questions, just please feel free to contact us at the Growth Platform. And certainly all the information we'll put available on the Growth Platform website on the Vistry Economy pages. So thank you very much indeed again for your attendance, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time around.